Hello again. There is often a marked and curious reluctance on the part of the police, the BBC, and everybody else to admit that foreigners or immigrants are behind some murder, wounding, rape, or terrorist attack in this country. No mention is made either of ethnicity, national origin, when certain crimes are reported, and this, of course, makes appeals for information about the whereabouts of suspects impossible to take seriously. For instance, we might be told that the police are looking for somebody wearing a black jacket and some distinctive fancy trainers, but about the colour of his skin there will be complete silence. Sometimes, though, it's possible to read between the lines of the official pronouncements and deduce what has happened. There are certain key phrases and omissions which tell us what is going on. Let's have a look at one or two of them. Any mention of communities is a strong clue that this is a crime of violence where the suspected perpetrator is not of native British stock. Until a few decades ago, we had a society in Britain, which was everybody. These days, though, we have communities, which means essentially groups of immigrants and their descendants who keep themselves a little apart from the rest of us. Friction between members of this or that community and another is a roundabout way of saying that one set of foreigners is fighting another bunch on the streets of our towns or cities. After a crowd of Eritreans started fighting each other in South London yesterday and then began attacking the police spoke vaguely of community tensions. That's certainly one way of putting it. Any police announcement which contains an appeal for calm is also an elusive reference to immigrants, who we are led to understand are more prone to getting worked up and excited than the rest of us. If one British person murders another, you never hear appeals for calm. It is only when, say for example, a Muslim has been attacked by a Hindu or something that calm is urged. In the description to this video, I give a link to a news item from last year. Pakistan had beaten India in a cricket match. And so, of course, this meant that Muslims and Hindus had to start attacking each other on the streets of the English city of Leicester. The police statement about these disorders is a classic example of how to refer to fighting between immigrants without saying what you're actually talking about. It reads as follows. We have had numerous reports of an outbreak of disorder in parts of the East Leicester area of the city. We have got officers there. We are taking control of the situation. There are additional officers en route and dispersal powers, stop search powers have been authorised. Please do not get involved. We are calling for calm. This is a beautiful instance of the way that it is possible to talk about Muslims and Hindus rioting and trying to kill each other without once mentioning either violence or the fact that Muslims are involved. The problem is, of course, that with things like Twitter, film of events on the streets is now available within a matter of minutes or even seconds on the internet. At one time, there would be something of a time lag while a news team from the BBC or ITV would be assembled and then travelled where something interesting was going on. These days, of course, almost everybody has a mobile telephone with which films may be made and then effectively broadcast to the world instantly via social media. Many of us find that Twitter is a more up-to-date way of following the news than waiting until we watch the television news in the evening. Even events in the Middle East are, of course, likely to appear on Twitter long before the BBC or newspapers pick up on what's going on. When I want to find out what's happening in Gaza or Lebanon, I naturally turn to Twitter rather than the newspapers. Even without this, though, we are still able to make a shrewd guess at what is happening, partly from the location of the event, if it happens to be in Britain, and also from what the police are telling us, or not telling us, as the case may be. It is when we hear that the police are asking people not to speculate about the incident on social media that our ears really prick up, because this means that it is a racing certainty that some ethnic minority or other is at the heart of the matter. We saw this, of course, with the death of the fellow following the Muslim wedding reception in Sheffield on Wednesday. For several days, the police and mainstream media worked in tandem to ensure that nobody really knew what had been going on. It wasn't until somebody let slip the word mosque that the cat was really out of the bag. Whenever the police ask us not to speculate, this is code for immigrants are involved, but we're hoping this will not become generally known. Talking of that awful incident when the middle-aged church girl went to the assistance of an unconscious Muslim woman laying in the road and was then, allegedly, run over and killed by her brother, I'm about to say that before mention was made of a mosque, I did ask myself if quite a different ethnic minority was at the centre of the business. I mean, I knew that with people being knifed and killed, this was not an ordinary English wedding reception, but I did briefly wonder if perhaps rather than being Muslims, those concerned might not instead have been tinkers, or members of the travelling community as they are more properly known these days. Vicious brawling, up to and including the use of firearms, is not wholly unknown in that particular community in Ireland. A few years ago, somebody was even shot dead during a traveller wedding for manner. I give a link to a news item about this in the description to this video. A correspondent from Ireland alerted me to this case and was also kind enough to send me a joke about this propensity for travellers or tinkers to resort to violence at weddings and funerals. It seems that a young tinker boy tried to get a job at a sports shop. The proprietor sent him away, told him to tidy himself up a bit and come back the next day, and he would give him a trial at the job. The following day, the young tinker turned up, reasonably dressed, and the proprietor of the shop told him to watch how he dealt with the customer, and then the young lad could try the next one. So a woman came into the shop wanting to buy a tennis racket. The shopkeeper spoke to her about it, discussed tennis a little, asked her whether she was playing a particular match, and it all went off very amiably. The woman went off quite satisfied after buying a tennis racket. Then it was the turn of the young tinker. Somebody came into the shop. The shopkeeper said, "Go on, you try and deal with this customer." And the man, it was a male customer, and he said that he wanted to buy a baseball bat. Upon which the tinker said, "Oh, is that for a wedding or a funeral, boss?"